Darling, what are you doing up at this hour? It's so late. I was just passing by your room and saw you looking at your miniature picture box telephone. You're just trying to wind down from a busy day. I'm very pleased you found a way to pass time, but you should be asleep by now. It matters not why I'm awake. We're discussing you. You know I tend to be a night owl. Why don't you turn that off? It's only a distraction. So tell me, what's on your minds that bars you from dreamlands? I see now. Our brains love to ruminate on ideas when we should be snoozing. Both happy and troublesome thoughts keep us stimulated. People also tend to indulge in their telephones in beds. Alas, 'tis a consequence of these modern times in which we live. Still, we can't ignore the fact that we require slumber. A person's body is their most pivotal possession, and you must care for it. You can't deprive it of rest. Sleep is restorative. It keeps the organs and immune system in check. You don't want to run yourself into the ground and get sick, do you? Of course not. You don't feel tired. Well, that's the crux of all of this, isn't it? Have you tried counting sheep? Oh, it's never worked for me either. Have you simply thought about how soft the pillow and your bed are? Don't think about anything else. Today is over, and tomorrow's not arrived. What has happened is in the past, and the future is nigh. But not now. Now is the time to rest, Cher. You've been trying, but nothing's working. You're hoping you'll just drift off with your phone. Come on, sit up. Let's fluff that pillow. A bad pillow can be a detriment to one's ability to unwind. Okay, lie down again. Would you like to listen to some music? Something calming? Suit yourself. How about a sip of water? You've already had some. And you had decaffeinated tea earlier. It seems we've covered all the steps, yet slumber evades you. Oh, have you tried reading? You did that earlier, but that didn't help either. A good old-fashioned book is just the thing for relaxation. For me, anyway. The words contained there in the covers whisk you away to dreamlands. I could be out like a light in 10 minutes by reading a tome. Then again, there have been stories that are so galvanizing that they've kept me up all night. I guess even novels aren't the infallible solution either. Oh! Your eyelids are looking heavy. Am I putting you to sleep with my voice? Huh. Perhaps it's a form of my hypnosis. So, after all this time, my rambling seems to be the key. Since we have discovered a solution, shall I lull you with my eloqution? Very well. Of what shall I speak? Gracious me, of all the times to be at a loss for words. Oh, I don't think I ever shared with you the history of my crawfishing excursions from when I was a child. Would you like to hear about it? Wonderful. Now, you have to imagine, Louisiana crawfish season is from November to July, with the best months being March through May. So there was always plenty to eat when I was living with my mother in the Acadiana. I'd get chicken wire from the general store and fashion a cage. Inside the cage, I'd place a piece of bait, usually a skeleton of leftover catfish, which is also a delicious dish. The catfish, not just the skeleton. Remind me to share my fried catfish recipe with you. So after the bait was set, I'd sink the cage in the swamp near a marked tree so I could find it later. When I returned the next day, the cage was teeming with crawfish. I'd empty the contents into my pail and return home, as proud as having bagged a 10-pointer. First, I'd have to rinse them well. Another name for crawfish is mud bugs, because they're bottom feeders that dwell in muds. I'd pour a few buckets of clean water over them to remove all the dirt. My mother would prepare the fixins, such as corn cobbets, potatoes, andouille sausage, and onions. She'd bring a large kettle of water to a boil, adding garlic, citrus, bay leaves, dried mustard, thyme, oregano, mustard seed, coriander seed, smoked paprika, cayenne pepper, black pepper, and an entire bottle of hot sauce. And then she'd add all the fixins except for the corn cobbets. We'd add the crawfish and cook those for 2 minutes, no longer. If you cook them for too long, they could get rubbery. She'd remove the pot from the fire to start the hot soak. Oh, it's when the crawfish and fixins absorb the spiced water. At this point, my mother would add the corn cobbets. Even though it's off the heat, the scalding water will still cook them. She'd mix in more spices to brighten the flavor. Now, if someone's cooking this recipe, they may be tempted to scoop everything out and serve it at this moment. But it's essential the soaking isn't skipped. During this time, the crawfish are absorbing all the beautiful flavor and becoming extra juicy. And how do you know when they've reached peak deliciousness? Easy. They sink to the bottom of the pot. Listen not to cookbooks that set a designated time for the soaking. Instead, rely on this old Creole and Cajun trick. And now comes the fun part. You shovel up the contents in a sieve, letting the spiced liquid drain back into the pods. This stock can be saved and turned into crawfish bisque. Prepare your eating surface with large sheets of butcher paper. No plates necessary here. Then, you just pour the strained crawfish and fixins right onto the middle of the paper. I say, there's nothing quite as mouth-watering as a hill of steaming crawfish before you. So, how do you eat them? Hopefully, there are no forks or knives in sight. You must be willing to get messy. Roll up your sleeves and start at it. You twist off the tail and suck the meat right out. You could also suck out the head's contents because they're so flavorful. Discard the shells and start on another. For drinks, I humbly must suggest crisp beverages, such as a Pinot Grigio or a lager. Since I've never been much of a beer drinker, I favor the wine. If you want to teetotal it, you could try lemonade or iced tea. I could easily eat a few pounds of boiled crawfish in a single sitting. Yes, I may prepare fancy delectables of Europe, but the lowly mudbug always beckons me back. I was practically raised on the boils. Well, except for when I was around my father in the city. He hated down-home cooking like that. Felt it was below him. Woe be to him, though. He missed out. One of the boil's characteristics is camaraderie. Friends and family gather around the table and share the feast. Good times and laughs are to be had. Oh, that reminds me of an uproarious anecdote. I once attended a boil with all my co-workers from WWL. It was the station's 5th year anniversary, and we headed over to the French Quarter for a celebratory crawfish boil. We were there all evening, reveling in the good times. Or, as we say, le bon temps. Jonathan, bless his heart, ended up dirtying his clean clothes with the boil liquid. He couldn't quite get the handle of opening the crawfish successfully, and they'd splash everywhere. At one point, he even asked for a fork and knife from the staff. Oh. The poor kid was already a hit and miss at forecasting, so this really pegged him as all thumbs. I laughed at him, and he went as red as a tomato. He then explained he was more of a gumbo sort of guy, so he ordered that for himself. After that, he declined all of our crawfish boils henceforth. Oh, my word. I now wonder if he was holding a grudge. Well, it was all in joviality, and he should have known that. Gracious, all this talk about crawfish has made me hungry. Perhaps soon you and I could set cages and collect some crawfish for our own boil. Would you like that, dear? Dear? Well, it seems you're fast asleep now. I'll still speak, though. I must make a note of it in my appointment book. We could cross the portal into the bayou with the cages and set them in the water. After a night, we could gather them and bring them to the hotel kitchen. Oh, it's a messy task indeed. The crawfish crawl over each other and drip everywhere. The smell is quite organic, too. While grabbing them, we must watch out for mosquitoes, leeches, and even gators. One time when I pulled out a cage, I inadvertently snagged a cottonmouth with it. Cottonmouths are a local snake, named so for their pure white mouths. Highly venomous, with surly attitudes to boot. I scrambled away when I saw what it was, getting mud all over my clothes. The snake slid back into the water, and I hastily retrieved the cage. Oh, my mother was furious at the state of my clothes. I ended up doing the laundry that day while she cooked my catch. I didn't mind much, though. I never saw laundry as a chore per se, but more of a relaxing task. And remember, this was before electric washing machines. We had a manual machine with an attached wringer. You first have to boil your water over a fire or the stove. You'd pour that into the scrubbing tub, along with cold water and some grated soap. You'd first scrub the dirty clothes against the scrubbing board, or washboard, as some people called them. This would dislodge dirt and grime from the garments. Using the scrubbing boards was not for the faint of heart. It was tedious. The water would quickly discolor from all the dirt, and the soap was harsh on the skin. My hands would be red and stinging following. Oh, getting it into your eyes was the worst, especially when the water before you contained even more soap. I'd have to run outside and pump water from the well. The cabin was old and didn't have running water from pipes. So there I'd be, my eyes streaming with stinging tears, and pumping cold water on my face. It was quite arduous. Oh, thank goodness for indoor plumbing. If you had a manual machine like we did, you'd put the wet clothes into the tub with clean water and turn the crank. A sturdy thing it was. It was a wooden tub with paddles inside, and nice brass accents all over it. When you turned the crank, the paddles would agitate the clothes inside. After a few minutes, you'd open the lid and feed the articles of clothing through the wringer. Its purpose was to wring out as much water as possible, so the clothes wouldn't be a sodden mess on the clothesline. Trying things in the swamplands could be tricky due to the high humidity levels, or when it rains. In the colder months, my mother would hang laundry in front of the fireplace. The floor was hardwood, and my mother didn't want the water to damage it. I'd wipe up the puddles that dripped off the clothes as they dried. I was so eager to assist. It's funny. I could still smell the odor. The burning wood, and the soapy linger on the clothes. It's odd what the mind chooses to remember, isn't it? Look how ridiculous I am, expecting you to answer me, when I know very well you're unconscious. I find comfort in speaking to you. I've shared things with you I've never told anyone. I trust you. Huh. Can you imagine that? The radio demon trusting someone. Although I've opened up to you, There are still things I want to say, yet I daren't, even when you're sleeping. I haven't the nerve. Perhaps one day, I'll muster up the courage to say the words that evade my tongue. I'll leave you to rest now. Bonne nuit, cher.